Hey everyone, what's going on? This is Ash from Mass Effect Odyssey. Just a quick message at the beginning of this video, just to let you know that this is a purely audio-only podcast, due to a couple of reasons, mainly due to time constraints with me working and obviously moving out my house very soon. This particular episode wasn't supposed to be coming out today. It was supposed to be another recording that Rima done solo, but due to some issues with that recording, that's no longer coming out, so I've had to very quickly put this one together, which means that due to time constraints and us trying to stick to a Tuesday and Saturday release schedule, I've just had to make this an audio-only podcast, which is fine really because it's quite a long one. It's about 20 minutes long, but it's a good kind of look into someone else's theory that we found online in regards to the Asari and are they really what we think they are. So yeah, just wanted to give you a quick message just to let you know what's going on, and yeah, that's about it really. So enjoy the video, enjoy the podcast, and we'll be back to normal videos again very, very soon. Hey everyone, what's going on? This is Ash and Rima from Mass Effect Odyssey, and today we do bring you another theory. This one is in relation to the Asari, and whether the Asari are more sinister than they actually seem. This comes from I was going to say an essay, but I don't know if that's the right way to really describe
it's more
it.
Like, I don't know.
But it comes from someone who's academically educated. So that's why I want to call it an essay.
I guess it is an essay because the way he's written it is kind of it's like a scientific essay.
Yes. So this is basically done by a gentleman by the name of Christopher Drake, and it's on the website overthinkingit.com. We will link it in the description for you to have a look for yourself and see what you think. But basically, the main title of this this whole thing is called Mass Effect: Fear the Asari. Are you scared already?
Da da da.
Yeah. But yeah, so, and the subtitle is How the Asari of Mass Effect Will Take Over the Universe and Destroy All Intelligent Life. So, prepare for a good one.
He's overthinking that a little bit. It's not that extreme.
Yeah, it's not that extreme, but it's basically along the premise of, are the Asari really who they are, how they are presented to us in the games? Because a lot of them are very nice and very friendly.
Very pretty.
Apart from a few, very pretty, yes. But it does go into a lot of detail as to why they're not so nice and friendly. So Rima did a lot of research on this one. So Rima's going to take the lead and going through the bullet points and the explanations and things like that. I will offer views where I can, and we'll go from there. So Rima, if you would like to.
So first of all, this is a warning. There's going to be a lot of paper rustling because there's a lot of notes to go through.
Yes, Rima has written a lot.
This kind of, it's more about it's about like, it's kind of the science. Well, he kind of bases it on the science of things like genealogy, xenology, things like that, where it's about like an evolutionary traits. Basically, it's all about like how evolution has kind of developed the Asari into being the perfect, as he terms them, the perfect predatory parasites in the Mass Effect universe, and they are so skilled at surviving that we basically have kind of all been duped by them. And it's an interesting the way that he's written it. It's really, really compelling. There's a lot of evidence for it, but again, it's subjective because it's a fictional universe. There's no actual like hard science there. So we'll go through it. So
before we do this as well, we should preface that this is just a theory.
It is just a theory. Well, as much as you can say a theory in any of the games.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not explicitly said in the context of the game. There's nothing in the codex entries to say it. So I guess it is just a theory.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we're gonna do a little bit of base science about the Asari first before we go. A bit of context. So, as anyone who's played the game knows, the Asari are an all-female, or I guess we say they're all female, but I guess they're a one-gender species.
Yes.
Where there is obviously no male version of them in our perspective. An Asari basically can mate with anyone, but they always produce an Asari offspring. Now, the Asari, even if they mate with a foreign species, say a human or a Krogan or a Turian, you will never actually see the child exhibiting any features from the foreign mate. Or the father. It's always the father, right? Whoever the person is. And it's because Asari don't actually exchange any DNA. So what they do is they take some foreign DNA from I don't know, Mr. Krogan, and they take Mr. Krogan's DNA and use it to kind of vary and mutate their own DNA. So they produce a clone of the mother Asari, but it's just slightly different. So in retrospect, they're always basically not that genetically diverse. And that kind of leads to a lot of problems in the Asari culture. So I guess you can look at it this way. The Asari have a very, very limited genome. So if Asari kept mating with Asari, you'd basically be using the same genes over and over again. And you just end up with tons of clones of each other because their DNA is so limited. So that's why they tend to prefer mating with other species to kind of bring kind of variation into their own DNA. So that's the basis of the Asari. And that's basically their fatal flaw in respect to their DNA and their genome. And if they kept mating with each other, what would happen is either they'd die out because they would be genetically kind of stunted, to be honest. It would lead to things like mutations and kind of defects, or it leads to the other thing in the game that is in the game, which is the Ardat Yakshi. And that's one of the major downsides of obviously mating with each other. So that kind of brings us on to the Ardat Yakshi. They're a key example of why diversity is so needed in the Asari genome. And it could be that possibly the Ardat Yakshi were actually, he prefaces saying this, the Ardat Yakshi probably were a genetic technique for the Asari to increase their territory when they were like in prehistoric times or before they became a modern culture. So when Asari were mating with each other, they'd end up having Ardat Yakshi children that would, and he references calling them psychopathic, super intelligent predators that consume almost anything they mate with. So basically they would expand the Asari territory quite wide, probably introduce them to other species, and then that would actually possibly lead to kind of an expansion of the Asari territory and homeworld. And then after that, the kind of nature would balance itself out. And normal Asari, you can't see me doing quotation marks, but normal Asari would probably cull the Ardat Yakshi. It's kind of a way for nature to kind of balance itself. So that's basically the basis of what he tells us. That's kind of the main disadvantage of the Asari genome. But the Asari seem to have, according to him, developed very specific, unique ways to overcome this. And the way he's explained it is actually kind of really, really interesting. Because it's all about like how we perceive the Asari is definitely different to possibly the way that they've actually kind of evolved over time. And we obviously see the Asari as very beautiful, very advanced, an advanced species. Are they the most advanced species, do you think? In our, well, apart from the Reapers and the Protheans and stuff like that.
I mean, in terms of like, the main two there, I think so. Like technologically, architecturally, definitely, because their buildings are awesome. But yeah, I would say that's probably about correct.
Well, it's my phone.
Oh.
That's my phone.
I'm professional.
I know, sorry. That's the first time this ever happened in a recording.
Rude. But yes, no, I would say that they are probably the more advanced species of the lot, other than the Reapers and the Protheans.
Right. So, so we see them as this really advanced race, and because the Asari, the Asari genetics and kind of like their history of their like evolutionary path, it's in the game itself. It seems to be very, very like taboo about talking about it. If you notice, there is a lot of codexes about the Asari in general, and like how like obviously their parentage, things like that, and their culture. But things like the Ardat Yakshi are seen as taboo, and it's kind of, we see how Morinth deals with Morinth is dealt with, and how like Samara deals with her children, and like the monastery and things like that. The Ardat Yakshi are kind of treated fairly badly for obviously not having any control of their own DNA. Yeah. So he preferences there's also possibly, so they tried to overcome this. They tried to overcome the fact that they would basically go extinct if their genome wasn't diverse. So one of the ways they did it was their lifespan. So the Asari are known to live to about 1,000 years. I think that's what's in the codex. And he says that this is possibly a way to overcome the fact that if they mated with each other, there'd be possible issues like the Ardat Yakshi. And it also gave them time to kind of introduce themselves to foreign creatures that may have not been when they were obviously evolving, or when they were kind of a prehistoric race. They wouldn't have obviously had other species to kind of mate with. It also states that there was possibly even a male version of the Asari. There's evidence in their history, but as I said, in this essay there's not very much. He doesn't kind of go into detail, so I'm not entirely sure what he means, but I'm kind of interested now to go through their codex and span through it to find out. But he says there was another sexual component of their species, possibly another gender, but it would have been well before the modern Asari age that we see now. So the evidence of it's probably all gone by now. But it seems to be the Arctic actually weren't completely hated. They would seem to be treated with some tolerance, because in the modern game, the Arctic actually obviously treated fairly badly. They're either murdered or killed or put in a monastery, and apparently only 1% of their population can turn into an Arctic actually, and they're normally always pure-blooded Asari. But if they were very, very much loathed, or basically if their culture kind of hated them as much as they did, purebloods wouldn't kind of happen. And Liara is kind of an example of the fact that purebloods aren't like banned or anything like that. They still have that in their culture. It's still part of their tradition of some sort. So there's still that kind of like historic component of their life. So the Arde actually probably did have some significance or some acceptable role in their society at some point. So that's one way. So kind of lifespan is one way of kind of avoiding this kind of genome issue. But the main point, and this is the most interesting one, this is the meat of the theory, this is the important one. So all the races in the universe of Mass Effect seem to think the Asari are beautiful, and I think that always brings us back to that in Mass Effect 2. You remember when you go to is it Ilium? You go to Ilium and you go to the bar to meet Miranda's contact. Yes, and you meet that there's a bachelor party going on.
Yes.
And there's an Asari stripper on the table.
Yes.
And they're basically all these, like, there's a Turian, there's a human, and there's a Solarian, right? And they're all talking about how this Asari is like, oh, she's so hot, man, or whatever. And then they all talk about how, no, she looks more like me. Oh, no, she looks like me. Like, they all seem to, like, they're obviously all attracted to her, but they're also all identifying parts of, like, her features that they obviously think that they're more closely related to me. Like, they seem to identify that they think Asaris are closely related to certain species. And the author of this essay comes up with a very good point to say that the Asari have features that are easily identifiable in all the different races. They're kind of like a mashup of all the races. And whether this is made on purpose by the BioWare staff or not, it's really, really interesting. So they're obviously quite mammalian. They have breasts. They kind of have humanoid features. If you look at their faces, they're very, very symmetrical. And apparently, there is a science about how the fact that symmetrical faces and features is really, really appealing to most humans of some sort. They have an odd coloring. They're blue. They go from blue to grey to purple. So they've got exotic coloring that can appeal to Solarians. They have scaling, also appealing to Krogans, and they have obviously the cartilage on their ridges, which I love the Joker Liara conversation. Remember that in Mass Effect 3? What do they move? Are they tentacles? Are they hard? Yeah, so they've got those scales that are meant to apparently be appealing to Turians. And so all these different features are meant to be appealing to a certain race. They also are very generous. Kind of, they seem to be the ones that seem to provide aid. They seem to be in like the scientific cultures. They're very technologically advanced, and they seem to help other races more willingly than, like, say, the Solarians or the Turians. Their culture seems to be about the female form, so they wear quite tight-fitting clothing. They are seen prominently in things like a lot of when you go to Mega, most of the strippers are for Asari, and when you speak to things like Samara and even the matriarch in Mass Effect 2, they all kind of talk about how, like, when they're all growing up, they kind of go through stages where they all go and, like, join a gang, or they'll all go and become strippers or something like that. Like, it seems to be quite common in the Asari culture that's not as, like, taboo as it would be in, like, the human culture. So the author of this, Christopher Drakes, suggests that the Asari have kind of propped themselves up in this galaxy to kind of be so appealing that they kind of get the pick of the choice of whatever mate they want, and allows them to choose exemplars of races to kind of help advance their own genome and help diversify their genome as best as they can. And this is why he calls them kind of parasitic, because the Asari take DNA from other species and kind of mutate their own DNA to their own purpose, but they never actually give anything back to the other races. So say human Commander Shepard and Liara had a kid, or even female Shepard, whoever, that child will never have any human DNA. So human society or the human DNA will never advance with any positive traits from the Asari genome. Whereas the Asari genome, though very still similar to what it was before in like Liara, it still would have become benefited from the fact that they would have had an exemplar human species. Like Shepard's meant to be the best of the best, right? So Shepard's child would clearly have some DNA that's quite vital, quite good, maybe strong, who knows, whatever. So that's why he says they're parasitic, because a parasitic relationship is when one benefits over the other. And he calls them parasites because it's almost antagonistic, because what happens is not only are you just taking DNA and not giving anything back, you're also taking away someone who possibly could have advanced their own species. So taking away Shepard from his species is taking away an exemplar of DNA from the human species. So there's one human child that won't be born, or there'll be like a human Turian baby that won't be born that could have been like a super soldier. And that's the whole point of I think this is the whole point of his theory, is that that's why they're kind of parasitic. Now, he never says that the Asari are doing this on purpose. It's just an evolutionary trick, which we see all the time. That's how evolution is. It's survival of the fittest. Yeah. And it's smart. If the Asari were developed with if they evolved with really terrible DNA that prevented them from being diverse, prevented them from kind of advancing, or basically they would have died out if they had kept going. It's smart that this is how they've developed themselves. It's kind of a tactic to make sure that they are the top race, and that they will continue to be the top race, because it gives them the advantage, because of where they are and where they are in the society of Mass Effect. We still see Asari as like the top species. And if you look at it, I wonder how many people who played Mass Effect chose to romance Liara over the other characters. It would be interesting to see that fact, female and male. It'd be interesting to see who romanced Liara. I know you romanced Liara.
I did not.
Say it. You did it.
I did. Yes.
So
it's true.
And that's the point. Is I think it's interesting to see if that is the depth of how much this character, like how these characters are made. I don't know if it's accidental or if this guy's looking way into it, but it's really, really cool. I love science like this.
Yeah.
And it's all theoretical, but it's all very much based on what he's kind of clearly seen in the game. So, Ash, there's a lot of talking. And I encourage, because we have kind of really... this is probably going to be one of the longer recordings we've done.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you guys, we have skimmed the surface of what this thing is. The essay is really long, and it goes into so much more detail, and there's a lot of good analogies, and I can't talk about it, because if I talked about the entire essay, it would take me about an hour and a half, I think, just kind of go to the meat of it.
Yeah.
So I hope I've kind of tried to explain it as best as I can.
I think you've given what we would call the bullet point version,
yeah,
which is giving you the basic knowledge that you need to know. So if you watch the video, you basically get what Christopher Drake was trying to say.
Yeah.
But obviously, if you want to go look at the full write-up, then obviously I'll be linking it in the description. You can go and have a look and read the whole thing for yourself. It is a very interesting read, and Remo read me basically that entire thing and her notes the other night, and
it blew his mind.
It did blow my mind, but it also took nearly an hour to
talk
it read
about,
to
yeah.
me. So yeah.
And we don't know who Christopher Drake is. There was a Twitter account at the bottom I went onto. It seems like it's a dead account. But the website overthinkingit.com says that he has achievements in things like neuroscience, psychology, anthropology. And if he is an anthropologist, then this is right up his alley. I can see if he is an anthropologist, because this is just all about like it makes a lot of sense, and it's. I would be interested to see if whether I don't think we're ever gonna know if it was ever done on purpose or not. Whether the BioWare writers actually did this much thought into this game, whether it's completely accidental. But it's also interesting to see whether other characters or other species in the universe have kind of developed other tactics to survive.
That's true. Yeah.
Any thoughts at all before we move on?
I mean, nothing too in depth because obviously you did pretty much all the work on this one. Mainly due to, obviously I've been working and stuff, so, and obviously if I'm not working, I'm editing, so I don't get a lot of time to do a lot of research projects at the moment, unfortunately. But I think it's very interesting. I think it explains a good amount of things, especially what you were saying about, what was that bit at the end you were saying?
Would you like me to summarize why I said
No. It was in regards to the DNA thing, and obviously taking particular traits from say my parents, for example. So obviously I am made of parts from my dad and parts from my mum, but if I was just made of one literal DNA, let's say if obviously if I was born to an Asari mother, then I would be an Asari. I wouldn't be anything else.
Would you be a sexy blue alien? Hello.
I don't think so. If people saw me in real life, I don't think they would consider me sexy in human form, let alone Asari form.
But yes, I see what you mean.
But I find it interesting that where normally, and it comes not in just like humans, like dogs and cats, for example. They're different breeds of dogs and cats can breed and make a new one, as it were. But for have a human and Asari to mate and then just be an Asari child seems interesting, but very strange to me at the same time. So that's the kind of one thing in particular that I took out of it. But overall, very interesting theory. Again, we do stress it is just a theory.
It's one of the more thought out theories I've ever seen.
Yes, and it comes from someone who's clearly well educated as well as into the.
He uses a lot of big words that hurt
Yes,
our
he
heads.
did. Yes, which we avoided to use in this one. But you'll see them if you read the article. You'll see all the nice long words. But yes, it's a very interesting article. It does make you think, which is all we try and do here at Mass Effect Odyssey. Try and make you think and try and have a discussion, and this will definitely do that, I think, as well. But I think other than that, that's pretty much it, isn't it? Mm-hmm. For that one. Cool. So thank you very much for listening and for watching. As Remus said, this is probably one of our longer ones recently. So if you made it this far, then thank you very much. And as always, subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all things Mass Effect, and you can help the channel to grow by sharing the video too. And again, thank you very much for listening. We'll see you again very, very soon.